coming up.
But here we have in red, that's the seeker, and in this case, it's Percival. And in his hands there, he more or less catches the old man, which in a few stories is actually his grandfather. So the grandfather of Percival is the old Grail king who is wounded. And of course, that suggests probably that there is a lineage within the whole Grail story. And everyone is a spiritual member of the lineage of the Grail when you are on the path. You know, we're not talking about a blood lineage here, we're talking about a spiritual lineage.
I think that's important to mention that, because many people might think like, oh, I'm not worthy, or why should I be a part of this, no? Archetypically, why should I connect if I'm not special? But the thing is, there is the blood lineage that you belong to, but there's also the spiritual lineage that you decide to be a part of. So we're all worthy of coming into these teachings and embodying them. But obviously, once you do it, you have to like really take it seriously, do the work, no? And then you will be integrated into that lineage. So that is also important to say, that you don't have to be like a descendant from Cleopatra, or I don't know, no? You know how people say, oh, I'm the reincarnation of whomever. No, that's not what this is about. This is about you choose your lineage, you find the teachers, you find your tribe, and then you do the work. Hello, Synchronauts, how are you? I'm very happy to see you. It's been a while, right, Mike? 3 months of a little bit of silence.
Indeed, I forgot about the time, but it's months.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a pause, a necessary pause, and you will tell us a little bit about what you've been up to in those times. But I'm very happy to have you here. How are you, dear Mike? Ready to continue talking about the third table?
Exactly. Although it has been a while, but I remembered where we left off, so we can pick it up today, and see if we can now really round up the subject of the 3 tables in the tree.
Yeah, and we will have many more things to talk about in the near future. So Synchronauts, be ready, because this session of the Elysian Roundtable is bringing a topic kind of to an end, hopefully. We don't know, hopefully. But there will be many more things to talk about. So I'm going to go really quick to the presentation just to remember where we're at. So we are talking today about the continuation of the third table. So if you haven't checked out the videos that we have already put out there talking about the first and the second table, you should go check it out, because it's really interesting and it gives you a context of what we will be continuing talking about today. So I'm just gonna advance where we're at. We moved from, we were talking last time about the Grail Guardians, and today we will be continuing with the Sphere of Transformations. So what can you tell us about this part of the third table, dear Mike?
Exactly. Well, I can point it also out here on the tree behind me. I hope that's visible enough for everyone.
I'll go to our bigger one here.
We can have a look. Yeah, we can have a look at the tree. And so that top circle there, that involves at the bottom Tiferet, and that includes the whole upper part of the tree of life, sometimes called the upper face. In traditional Kabbalah, it's called countenance or a face. And within the center, you see there the, sphere or non-sphere of Da'at. So at the center of that circle there, you have Da'at. And that is the sphere, the whole circle with Da'at in the center is the sphere of transformation. Now, why is that? Because the upper part of the tree is the home, the place of the Holy Spirit, what they call the Ruach HaKadosh in Kabbalah. So remember that the lower sphere was the sphere of action. That's the worldly sphere of participating in the world of time and space with this very nice body that everybody's being given, and the ego to support it. Then we have the second sphere, the sphere of growth, because there you have the potential of growth within the center Tiferet, so that's self-consciousness. So then you can move out and alter your journey and your quest in a different kind of action. You can change something, but there's always this vulnerability of falling back into old patterns and the old actions. So you can do a lot from that second sphere, but there's always this possibility of just reliving your old conditionings. And that's just a very valid path, valid part of the path itself. It happens to all the knights and ladies at the round table, and it happens to every Kabbalist, so that's not a problem. But if we can also move from the sphere of growth into the sphere of transformation, that's exactly what it says. And the form, that means our thoughts and feelings, our conditionings, they truly change to a degree that they cannot go back to the old pattern that they were, conditioned in. So that's the influence of transpersonal part of the tree. So this sphere and this table is transformational and transpersonal. So the influence of it goes beyond the personal. So in this sphere, if you look, for example, at a lot of adventures that you can read about concerning the round table, this is the sphere of the miraculous. Here things happen that you think, this is not normal, this is beyond the real personal life and everything. So the mythical dimension opens up here.
Okay.
Well, let me give you an example. Okay. But if you have a question, then tell me, of course. For the people who know a little bit about the Grail myth, and otherwise I'll tell you about it, is that all the seekers who are looking for the Grail castle, because it was said first you need to find a castle, and then you can find the Grail. Now, the castle is somewhere that you didn't expect it to be, and it is in a place that there was no castle before. And it is never in the same place twice. So this is something, out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
This is not the kind of building that we are used to, which is always fixed in the same place. So this must be a building, a castle of some kind of other or different order. So this is a spiritual place that we have to look for, which manifests at a certain time when, it's necessary, when it's needed for us to find it. Not on our time, but in the time of, the sacred, so to speak.
So the conditions are given, no? It makes me think a little bit about Harry Potter, that they have this room of requirement that only appears when you need it. Although it's
Very
always
much
in the same place in the school, but it only appears when you need it, and it has exactly what you need at the moment to do whatever you need to do. No?
Very good example. I didn't think about it, but now you mention it, spot on.
Yes. That's nice. And could we also say that, for example, when we're connecting to this third sphere is when we start having amazing synchronicities happen to us, or even like the telepathic connections, no? When you think about somebody and that person at that moment sends you a message or calls you, things like this, these are from this realm, you could see, like they seem so magical and unexplainable. And that's where this come from. Yes?
Exactly, indeed.
Nice.
And then it's a very important point here is that the synchronicities need to be tested all the time within the spheres on the lower arches or levels. Otherwise, we may fall into a kind of superstitious mode that we connect all kinds of things that belong to a kind of heavenly domain, but they need to be tested in the lower spheres as well, also especially within the lowest sphere of action. So does it make sense to my life or to the context of my life?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It does. I think it does. Yeah, and that's also Kabbalah. You know, it needs to make sense in the totality of the tree, the totality of you and me, and
Yeah.
everybody's listening. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very
So
important teaching that you're giving us right now, dear Mike, because I've seen it because I work with a synchronic language, which is the Galactic Mayan synchronometer, and we do have these amazing synchronicities. But I didn't like you just gave me a very important key. I didn't understand why some people get lost in the synchronicities, and they sometimes use them to like create these fairy tales, that they are not really
yeah.
sustained in the 3D. And now I understand why. It's because it's not that it's not happening at this level, but if you do
Oh yeah.
not ground them into reality, then
Yeah.
I mean you can get lost in synchronicity, and it's very dangerous. And I've seen how it can bring a lot of pain and sorrow if you don't manage this correctly. So this is important that whatever we are working with in the higher realms or in this table, we have to bring
Yes.
it down to our
Yeah.
more 3D and to our more like materialistic or mundane aspects. If not,
Exactly.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that.
And well, and in relation to this, consider the following: that the highest sphere, the sphere of the spirit, is the domain or the realm, if you like, the world where everything is interconnected and interdependent. So
Mm,
in that consciousness, you find that everything is related to each other. Nothing is separate.
yeah,
So that's the basis of synchronicity. But if
yes,
you start looking for it, you start looking for the signs, you may fall into the trap of delusion and confusion, even insanity. So
yes,
it's very good not to look for synchronicities, but they happen to you. They
exactly.
present themselves to you.
Yeah,
And
I
then you
totally agree.
say, oh my God, it's been given. And I didn't see this before. And now, yeah,
Yeah, totally agree. I've seen it. I've seen people with those three
yeah,
things you just mentioned. They present that because um, they're not, as you say, no, they're chasing the synchronicities, or they chase the omens, or they chase the prophecy, or they chase whatever. And when you go
yeah,
chasing after that, then that means that your ego wants to take control of it, and it should be quite the opposite. These are opportunities for our beings to connect with spirit and to receive
mhm,
guidance, not
yes,
in our terms, but in the terms of divinity, of divine
yes,
will. And so that
preferably.
that makes a lot of sense to me right now. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, and to highlight that a little bit further is that the upper sphere, the sphere of transformation,
mhm.
is really not very much included in the active work of the seeker or the Kabbalist. It happens to us.
Okay.
You know, this is the higher table of the higher teachings. That's
Mm,
why it's called the table of transformation, or sometimes the table of the Last Supper of Christ. So here
mm,
things happen that are out of the personal hands of the seeker. So in the first and second sphere, there's where we really work and do the seeking. But
okay.
the upper sphere is the result, if you like, the spiritual result of everything that we have done on our quest. So the
Wow.
spirit meets us halfway, so to speak.
Mm,
That's
yeah.
why, for example, the disciples of Christ eventually end up at the Last Supper, and there they participate in the miracle of how heaven and earth are being joined together through that very simple ritual, really,
Mhm.
but with profound consequences.
Yeah.
You,
Wow.
you know
That
what I
makes a
mean?
lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
how
really
can you know that you're in contact with the higher sphere of transformation and the table of the Last Supper?
good.
Is you find that your will and your life is actually not in your hands. So you start almost to, out of a kind of devotional movement within you, to give up your life, as it were, or to give up your will.
Mm,
And that kind um, of emotion almost is called in Kabbalah difficult.
yeah.
Now, it doesn't only mean devotion. Difficult means, well, several things. And one of them as well means to cleave unto the spirit.
Okay.
So from Tiferet, our inner selves at the heart center, there we have experienced through the quest, through our lives, what it is how to find ourselves in connection with something sacred. But still in connection with the lower sphere, we tend to lose it, on our quest, in our daily life.
Yeah.
Something
we
happens,
forget and we get lost. Yes.
That's
yes.
it. We're back into the forest of enchantment.
Yeah.
And we have to crawl out of it, or in whatever way. So that's a bit of a problem. But it's completely natural in the quest itself. So then from our Yesod to Tiferet, we try to connect more and more to Da'at, to the third sphere. So to remain in connection, not only with the world, but also in connection, very, very disciplined in a way, to the spirit. So how can I go on my quest and be reminded of the spirit all the time? Not only in my meditation or in a practice or in a ritual, but also when I am going about my daily stuff and my work and my relationships, etc.
Yeah.
And that's the next, and it's beautifully portrayed in a lot of stories within the Grail quest. How is that being done?
Yeah.
How do you connect to the Grail? Not that it's just a temporary meeting of the spirit, but it becomes something with you, or even it becomes you.
Yes.
And that's what we are talking about here in the last sphere, so to speak, or the third table.
And something interesting also to mention is that we all connect to this differently. It's never the same experience for everybody. We all connect, we all have different experiences, but it takes us to the same, energetically to the same place, so to speak.
Yes, it does. And that's why there are a few examples of this on the Grail quest, and they have different destinies to fulfill. And the sphere that we are talking about today, mostly, is also the sphere of destiny, the level of destiny. So how does my and your life fit in to the greater scheme of things? What am I doing here, really? Exactly. Not just as a person, but what does your soul do here on this planet? And so, for example, Percival, and we can see that in one of the slides, by the way, is replacing the old king, because the old king is sick. He's the maimed king or the wounded king. And his purpose or his destiny is to heal the king and then replace him. Because by healing the king dies.
Do you want, we can go to that slide and we can move around?
I think it's good for everyone. So
we were just talking about the sphere of transformation, but let's do the old Grail king dies.
Yeah, this is I think beautiful picture of course very suggestive. But here we have in red, that's the seeker, and in this case it's Percival, and in his hands there he more or less catches the old man, which in a few stories is actually his grandfather. So the grandfather of Percival is the old Grail king who is wounded. And of course that suggests probably that there is a lineage within the whole Grail story, and everyone is a spiritual member of the lineage of the Grail when you are on the path. We're not talking about a blood lineage here, we're talking about a spiritual lineage.
I think that's important to mention that, because many people might think like, oh, I'm not worthy, or why should I be a part of this, no? Archetypically, why should I connect if I'm not special? But the thing is, there is the blood lineage that you belong to, but there's also the spiritual lineage that you decide to be a part of. So we're all worthy of coming into these teachings and embodying them. But obviously, once you do it, you have to like really take it seriously, do the work, no? And then you will be integrated into that lineage. So that is also important to say, that You don't have to
Yeah.
be like a descendant from Cleopatra or I don't know, no? You know how people say, oh, I'm the reincarnation of whomever. No, that's not what this is about. This is about you
No.
choose your lineage, you find the teachers, you find your tribe, and then you do the work, no?
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah. I mean, one of the stories, the Grail King is called Anfortas, and it means um, inherited by blood, like most kings are on this planet. So it doesn't mean that you have inherited the spiritual kingship within you. That's something you cannot inherit from, one's DNA until the next. You have to earn that by inner spiritual work.
That's right.
And again, dear listeners, we are talking here about kingship as an archetype. So an archetypal function. So the kingship for male and female, like the queenship. But that's another discussion. Just want to highlight that.
Yeah, good point.
So
that makes a lot
the
of
wounded
sense.
king here, the old king, is the old authority, an old Tiferet within you. And even Tiferet is not, without problems or without possible corruption, or mistakes. So when the time is there, the new transformation needs to happen of the identity of Tiferet. And that's not so abstract as it may sound, because people or listeners now, and maybe you, I hope you as well, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, is that even Tiferet shifts from time to time, goes through a transformation, and you adopt a new self on the quest. You find a new destiny. You say, I used to be, I don't know, a therapist. Now I am much more a teacher. I used to be only a seeker, and now I find something. I'm closer to the Grail. So now also my function in life changes.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here in this exchange. So basically they are the same person almost, you could say. It's a shift in consciousness, in the psyche.
So it's like the same energy, no, the same, as you say, the same character, but different versions according to their experiences, no, and what they have lived, where they choose to move in the world, no. It makes me think about like if you connect in the past, no, with who you were, who you are, and who you want to become, and there's still that essence of you.
Exactly. You will not forget your old self. Fortunately, because then you can still remember where you came from.
Exactly.
Which is very, well, it's a very good thing. Speaking from knowledge, etc. So, but this is the transition from one identity to the next. And so the old king, the old identity can die, and the new Grail guardian may rise, which is this case Percival. And this may happen to anyone on quest. The problem sometimes is we don't want to die. We don't want to let go of an old identity. We don't want to transform because it's scary. And, that's very, very understandable. But the problem is with the main king here is he, the archetype of the king, is too healthy to die, but too sick to live. And that's sometimes a state of the human being that we're in a kind of limbo. And we can just be, we can just exist, but we have no movement in life. The spirit doesn't move us any longer. The Grail is not inspiring us any longer. So something needs to happen. So the king needs the seeker to find him, to acknowledge the Grail, the spirit, and say, I, like Christ did, I acknowledge what has been given to me fully. I integrate it, and I will accept this sacrifice. And then this scenario happens within you.
Yeah,
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, especially
Very
like if anybody goes through a dark night of the soul, This
Yeah.
very much explains what is happening when you're finally getting out of it and you're really like changing, doing that change between what used
Yes.
to be. And as you say, it's a very scary moment and even painful because you don't want to let go of that which is familiar. But when your soul is ready to make that step, like there is no point in delaying it, no? The more you delay it, the more painful it will be. But there will be
Yeah.
like I think that the thing to be aiming at or to think about is that you're just being transformed, just like a caterpillar is becoming a butterfly, and it has to become mush, but it becomes and it's still your essence. And trust the process, no? But it's like operatively it's not so simple, but
It is not.
we
Yeah.
have this mythology to help us navigate it better, definitely.
Yeah. And coming back to one of the first things that we said about the upper sphere, and around the spirit, around the art of the tree, that's exactly that trust or the devekut, the devotion to give your life into the hands of something greater and say, okay, exactly. That's the how the word is being spelled most of the time. Yeah. And not trying to, yeah, that this is the posture, so to speak, of yielding. I think that's a beautiful English word, the yielding unto something greater. Uh,
Mm,
uh, Battles of life can be won through your own hands, through your own doing.
yeah.
So the seeker who persists on the quest will come to a certain point where we say, okay, this is out of my hands as a person. And it is from Tiferet that we can say, not my will, but thy will be done. Whatever the die is that the seeker has a certain, connection with, and however you want to call it, doesn't matter.
Mm,
This is also a beautiful thing within the Grail quest because some of the Grail seekers were a bit more Christian, but the other ones, the older stories were very Celtic.
yes.
So it could the deity could be anyone, could be the
Hmm.
Morrigan or the great goddess, but it could be God of the Christians, or it could be just called the Grail.
Hmm.
And that's the beauty of it. There's no one particular archetype for it.
Yeah.
So this is it. This is the yielding, the devekut, and it can be done in prayer or in meditation, but it can also be done in any moment of life. You can just have a walk in nature and just realize deliberately what just comes to you. You say, yeah, this whole creation is greater than what I am, and this life is not about me.
Wow.
You know? And you can say it in your own words, but
Hmm.
but it has to come from the heart. Otherwise, it's too mechanical, of course.
Yeah, and it won't be authentic, it won't be real because you can say it, but if
Yeah,
you're not feeling it and if you're not really surrendering.
yeah,
And there is a moment in life because I just went through a very similar process very recently, no? Had my own
yeah,
dark night of the soul, and now I'm emerging back to it, and it taught me a lot. And what I can say is that the moment of final surrender for me was when I was just like, why am I fighting what is, no?
yeah,
Reality will always wins. So let's stop fighting what is and just surrender. And the minute
yeah.
I did that, really magical and synchronical stuff started happening.
Mm,
And I felt completely renewed. But it was a very painful process because obviously the work of our ego is to try to protect us, to
yeah,
try to make us like survive whatever comes. So that's why the ego will do anything to try to stop these kinds of processes because the ego says, I'm gonna die. It's like the old king, I'm gonna die. But the truth is, you're
yes.
not gonna die, you're just gonna be transformed. And in order to become the best version of yourself, the most authentic version, you need to yield. It is necessary.
Yeah.
And it depends, no? If you do it right and you allow life to take you there, it can be a very magical moment when you feel so
Mm,
little, no?
yeah.
So insignificant, but at the same time, like everything conspires around you to give you that moment of connection and say, yes, I have no choice anymore but to surrender with an open heart,
Yes.
so that I can receive all the good things that the divine will has in store for me, and then I can go
Yeah.
and fulfill my destiny. Talking again about destiny, moving from the realm of fate
Yeah.
entering into destiny. So that makes a
Very
lot of
much.
sense. And
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
remember the song by, if Synchronauts, if you want to listen to it, and I think I will post it on Facebook, a song by Elijah Ray that is called Lay Down Your Shield. And it just reminded me, and I'm going to share it also with you, dear Mike. This song, it talks about precisely this, no? Like this position when you're like, lay down your shield, there's nothing else to be fighting for.
Yeah.
Just let it come to you, no?
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Yeah, and it also reminds me of in accord with Percival's story, that in the very beginning, when he was not only even a knight, he was tested by Arthur, and he had to defeat a certain knight who was a nuisance, um, kind of enemy of Camelot in those days. So they said, oh, if you want to become a knight, then defeat this knight outside there. Who is this red knight in red armor. And he is being given armor and a horse and a lance to battle with this opponent. But he came to Camelot with rags. He was completely clothed in stuff that his mother gave him, who didn't want him to become a knight. But he didn't take off the old clothes. So he clothed himself in a new identity, but he kept on the old stuff. Even when he defeated the Red Knight, he took on the identity of the Red Knight by taking on the armor, dressing himself up. But still, he kept on wearing the stuff from his mother. Now, you can think that that's a good thing, like a nostalgic memory. But in the spiritual process, you have to choose, because otherwise there cannot be a transformation. Then there's just an exchange of identity, but not what we are talking about today. You have to give up something. Yes. It's like, again, talking about the third table and, the table of the Last Supper. Christ said on different occasions to his people, if you want to be a follower of mine, you have to leave yourself behind. That's another message there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most difficult things to do for us.
Definitely.
Like you said, there's a lot of mechanisms in us, and they want to hold on and hang on no matter what. And that's the greatest challenge, is to die psychologically, or what we sometimes say in the Western mysteries, to die before you die. And that's the greater death.
Yeah.
Physically dying is quite easy, but to die psychologically, to become someone new, that's what we are talking about here today in the end. That's the table of the Last Supper. I am not becoming myself, I'm becoming someone who is actually, or the one who I always was, which is one with divinity. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So do you want to move to the next slide?
Yeah,
Connection
sure.
with Avalon? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's important to, of course, it's very interesting to mention Avalon. But Avalon is also at the same time the sphere of the upper part of the tree. Now, why is that? Because it's the domain of the spirit. And it's also the place of metaphysical teachings or spiritual teachings.
Okay.
This is the lower part of the tree is all about the day-to-day living. And at the center of Tiferet, that's the interface between the normal world and the world of the spirit.
Over here.
But Avalon is the home or the island, it's a metaphor, a symbol for the place, which is also in you and me and everyone,
Mm.
the island where the metaphysical teachings is always present.
Okay.
But again, there you go, with the Grail Castle, it seems to be not there and hard to find because it's an island somewhere beyond the mists. There's a veil
Yeah.
before it. Now, in Kabbalah, often there is a veil, you know, between the upper and lower part here of the tree of life.
Okay.
So to reach the art, the place of the spirit, you need to cross a certain boundary.
Yeah.
And in the tales of concerning Avalon, the island of Avalon, that's a certain bank of mists. You need to go there, but if you don't know how to part the mist, you will be lost forever on the lake with your little boat. So you need someone, which is most of the time the priestess Morgana or Morgan Le Fay, who knows how to get in there. So she is the inner guide or the Magid for that specific purpose, is how to access that that knowledge within you. So, and everything coming from those upper waters, so to speak, not just Avalon, they are gifts from heaven or gifts from the other world in Arthurian symbology. And here with this beautiful picture, you see here we see the Lady of the Lake, or one of them, because there are many ladies of the lake in stories. Yeah. The most famous one is Vivienne, or Naomi, sometimes she's called. And at a particular point in the whole quest of Arthur, quite at the beginning, when he loses the sword that is drawn from stone, or it shatters, and remember, that was the sword that gave him, so to speak, his kingship. So that's not Excalibur. That was a different sword, the sword out of stone. And then Merlin helps him to receive this sword. At a certain point, they go on a lake with a boat. And there, this lady arises out of the waters and she offers him this, wondrous magical sword from a different domain. So it has extraordinary powers. And it is only with the Round Table and Excalibur that there can be a real Camelot. Yeah. So, and the gift from heaven, in this case, it's Excalibur, but anyone can receive a gift from heaven. And it doesn't need to be a sword. It doesn't need to be anything physical, really. But you can find something within you that has been given at a certain moment in time. And again, we don't have anything to say about it. We can only work and be on our quest. But something will come from it and will support us.
That makes sense. Yeah. Wow.
And at just certain occasions, it can be something physical that comes your way. It can also be a book. But most of the time, it is something that you find within yourself. And you can say, oh, this is like a sword or like a grail, or this is like a stone or a shield, whatever it is. But the quality that you have found from that world, that domain, represents something. And you will realize, like Arthur did, that it is a gift that not for you forever. It's been given to you to fulfill your destiny.
That's a good point.
And when that's done, you need to return it. Exactly. And that's, of course, if you've really done your thing in life and you have purified yourself through the process, it will not be a problem to return it.
Exactly, because you just used it for what you needed, and then you can return it. And if you need any other magical help, it will come to you in the shape and form you will need it in another situation. So there's no sense on keeping it with you. It's like that story in the Bible, no? When the people are crossing the desert, and
Yes.
Moses tells them, just take what you need to eat. And some of them were trying to get more manna, no? And then it did
Yes.
rot because you don't need it and it will rot. So just take what you need for the time you need it and then release it. Yeah.
And then release it. Yeah. Well, and the manna of heaven, or the dew of heaven, is the same thing. I mean, he comes from the deep of a lake, but that's basically the heavenly worlds in the Celtic tradition.
Yeah.
So indeed, there's a good analogy there. And so the thing received needs to be also returned in due time, because it's not a personal gift. It's a gift to the soul and your destiny.
Exactly.
That needs to be understood. And and it can only be understood when the difficult, the devotion on the quest is developing and really gets a firm place within the soul.
That's nice.
Then you know what it means. You know, when the light is being given, this is wonderful, but it's not mine to keep. And the beauty of it all is that as soon as you know that you give it away again, or you return it to where it came from, you empty yourself, and because of that, you receive again.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
you
the
just keep the
idea
flow.
Exactly. But with the manna, that's the same thing. You try to keep it, you are not becoming an empty vessel for reception. So nothing will happen, get stuck in life. Yeah. So that self-emptying is also a very Buddhistic idea. The self-emptying will eventually also return, or fill you with heaven, so to speak. Yeah.
Wow, that's really nice. Well, I think that we have covered it all, but I just want to show really quick because we didn't show the image from the sphere of transformation. So just if you very quickly could tell us what was your idea with showing us this picture about this table of transformation, really quick.
Yeah, the ship of the soul. Well, there's so many images that we can cover with all of the spheres, but this one, the ship of Solomon, which is of course a scriptural related symbol there. This is the vessel of the Grail guardians, the ones who find the Grail and know their destiny. So who's on the ship? Parsifal, we just talked about him. His good friend Bors, another Grail knight. Galahad, the Christ-like knight, or the son of Lancelot, and then the sister of Parsifal, Dindrain. So they are on the ship of Solomon, and they have only one direction or one purpose, and that's to bring the Grail back home. And where's the home? Is the unity where the spark fell from. So that's the upper and first Sephira, that's Saras, it's called. That's the home of the Grail. And they understand out of that Devakut, like the sword, we need to bring this back where it came from. This is not for us. And the ship is a symbol for the soul. It's the vehicle of consciousness in which we travel. And that's basically why we have also used this symbol in the whole presentation. Yeah.
Wow. That's very, very nice. Thank you for explaining that. I think it's very clear now with everything we've been talking about in the previous videos, but also like right now, rounding up all the information. So tell us, dear Mike, you're going to have an activity very soon in the UK. So what's that going to be about? Tell us.
All right. Yes. Like every year, I'm going to go to Hawkwood College, which is an old anthroposophical college in the Cotswold in the UK. And traditionally, my teacher, Seth Ben-Shimon, has been teaching their Kabbalistic retreats forever. He passed away a few years ago. And for some years, I think it was since 2016, I've been doing Kabbalistic workshops prior to the summer school. Excuse me. So this year again, from the 1st until the 3rd of September. And normally I do this with a parallel topic like the Round Table and the Grail or mythology. This year, I have no accompanying topic, so I'm going to talk about Kabbalah in daily life and the healing properties of the Kabbalah tradition.
Nice.
So anyone can join, even if you have no knowledge, you're a beginner, but also advanced students. It will be theory and practice, so it will be a very interactive, experiential seminar.
As your teachings always are, so that's also very good to keep in mind. And also, you have finished writing a book. Can you share a little bit of that information with us?
Well, more or less, yeah. My part of the manuscript is done. It's a book for the publisher and bookshop in London, Watkins. Maybe familiar with that. Well, I know you are. Yeah, it's a beginner's guide, and my work has been done, and it will be published very likely at the beginning of next year, so January 2024. And I will definitely let that be known on social media.
Yeah, so that we are looking forward to reading that book. Yeah, and well, you heard that, Synchronauts. If you can go to this workshop that Mike will be giving at Hogwood College, you can contact him. How can people contact you, dear Mike, for any questions or if they want to buy your books?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, because there is a new website at the moment. It's not completely finished, but no website is, I think. But please have a look at Kabbalah Mystical School, KabbalahMysticalSchool.com. And there you can see the Kabbalah workshop and some other things, how to buy my 2 former books about Kabbalah and Science. So there you can reach me. You can also subscribe to the newsletter or contact me directly. So everything is on there. And the other website I have is circleofavalon.nl. And that covers also the round table and some other activities. Yeah.
Very good. All right. So you heard it, Synchronauts, how you can contact Mike. Go check out his new website. And we'll be back, I don't know when, probably in a few weeks before you go to Hogwood. We can record something. We don't have a topic. We don't have a topic yet, but I'm sure that we'll find something very interesting to talk about, because there is so much that we can analyze through the eyes of Kabbalah, and it's very nourishing. Yes. So thank you, dear Mike, for giving us your time and your knowledge. Thank you, Synchronauts.
Lovely again.
See you soon. Kisses and hugs to everybody. Good vibes. And we'll see each other very soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.